Okay, thanks for inviting us to appear as visual. My name is Sida Zhou.
And my name is Iris Long.
We are media artists, curator, currently teaching at the Sichuan Fine Art Institute in China. We are honored to be introduced our recent project, CCA now, as known as Archive Talks to Now. When archive and the database with an expedient space create room for creative presentation and artist evaluation immerse in.
We have lost the connection with them. So let's try again.
Maybe it's better if we just turn off the camera out.
Yes, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, otherwise. Right, yeah, I think that's easier.
Okay, should we start again or?
Go ahead, go on.
Okay.
Okay.
So, Iris, would you like to talk a bit about what CCAA is?
Yeah, could you move to the next slide? Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so this project is about visualizing the archive of CCAA, which is in short for Chinese Contemporary Art Award. And I'm gonna do a little bit introduction of the background or the context of CCA and why this archive is interesting to us. So CCA was established in 1998 by a former Swiss ambassador called Uli Sig, and he is one of the most influential art curators and collectors of Chinese contemporary art. So in the past 15 years, CCAA has invited more than 60 influential domestic and international jury members who selected 19 artists and 5 critics among thousands of candidates. So what's more interesting than the award itself is that the result of these 15 years of selecting artists and critics left us a big archive, which is basically mirroring the past 15 years of Chinese artists and Chinese art in general. Next.
I think we could play the video first.
Yeah. Can you play the video that we just sent you a link? Yeah. Are you playing the video right now?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm just going to talk a little bit. So the purpose of this project is to investigate the possibilities to integrate archive knowledge to a real exhibition setting and gather on-site and real-time feedbacks. So we went through thousands of raw files, non-digitalized application forms, images of all kinds of resolutions, and video clips. So finally, we had the imagery projected on the surface of a curtain formed of individual floor-to-ceiling threads that's flanking this 50-meter-long corridor. So basically what you see in the video is that the curtain divides the sort of dark corridor visualization from bright white cube exhibition spaces, constructing a sort of visual contrast. And the projection offers a subtle physical-virtual dialogue in which the physical texture of the threads form a surface for the projected imageries. The process of some person walking through the thread curtain dark space starts with his encounters with virtual spaces and invites the visitors into the bright, the conventional white cube space of the exhibition itself. Just let me know when the video is finished.
Yeah, it's about another minute.
So what you're seeing is the project. This project happened in an exhibition in Power Station of Art in Shanghai, and it's the CCAA's 15 years anniversary exhibition, in which we were asked to do the archive visualization to bring more experience of the exhibited artworks.
So the video is also being completed.
Yeah. Yeah, so here we're going to show a little bit about the technical setup of this project.
Okay, there are 24 Full HD digital projectors used in this piece, covering both sides of the corridor, so you can see the one image fly from one side to another. So the program imagery is split into 4 parts, rendered by 4 computers, and synchronized by intranet. All render images sent to a graphic station, which watch our system for each blending. So I'm going
to move on to a sort of explanation of the structure of the archive visualization. Next slide. Next one. Thank you. Yeah, so the archive of 15 years of Chinese contemporary art is translated into 4 visual movements, and each with its own embedded narratives. So the archival content, including text, images, videos, audios, they provide simultaneously the visual form as well as information itself. The 4 frameworks construct the storyline of the show as well. So the 4 frameworks are titled Impression, Birth, Time, and Award. Each addresses an aspect of CCAA and the archive. Works by the winners of the CCAA from 1998 to 2014, so in the past 15 years, were exhibited in the space in the same time. Next one. Yeah, so here is the first framework in which we wanted to construct merely the impression of the pure amount of data presented. So we arranged all the archived materials in pure chronological order in wave form, floating from one side of the corridor of the wall and to the other side. Next one. The second framework moves to a multi-layered moving sphere structure to allow visitors to explore as if peeling an orange, from very general understanding to a deeper exploration of what exactly CCAA is. Next. Yeah, so here is the top view of the sphere structure, so you can tell how the archive information is restructured in this framework. On the very outer ring are the keywords generated by audience on site, and as well as historical press reviews, referring to how this subject is tagged, hashtagged, or commented by the general public, which is also usually when how one has the impression of something. Second to this ring are CCA speakers, people, including artists, curators, jury members, etc., whose names are widespread or whose faces are more recognizable for someone with very little knowledge of the archive. So on the third ring, we move to the artworks produced by those people. So for visitors who have more profound knowledge of Chinese contemporary art, he or she will now get a sense about the scale, the diversity, and the integrity of this archive. On the very inner circle are events and exhibitions curated and organized by CCAA as an art entity. Next one. So here we are on the third framework, which moves to the subject of time, which is the most significant aspect of this archive because it basically covers the span of, we would say, the highlight of Chinese contemporary art. So the archive was one of the very few which focuses purely on Chinese contemporary art, that is to say, art produced after the 1980s. So in this framework, visitors can walk along the corridor and browse the archived data chronologically and in details. Next one. Yeah, so you can see archived information from each year forms its own rotating wheel, while walking along the corridor, one could get a sense of how the history of this award or this archive has been developing, what kind of imagery it's producing, what types of artists and artworks were paid more attention on, etc., etc. And you can even discover more personal narratives from this framework. For example, you can see, for example, Ai Weiwei. He was the winning artist in 1 year, and he became the jury member several years after. Yeah, next one. And the last framework of this visualization is purely about CCAA, not just as an archive, but also an award. Basically, this is to let visitors know how the system works. Next one. Yeah. So we have, this is again top view. So we have these horizontal wheels, each representing one section of the award. Best artist, best young artist, lifetime achievement, art critic. And this is pretty much the core of the presentation of the award system. And the other long related images form a larger circle that is positioned at the far background, so to enhance the horizontal wheel structure of the award itself. Yeah, so I'm going to hand to Sida, who will tell you more about how this is not just a visual representation of the archive, but also an interactive archive. Yeah, next one.
Next slide, please. So besides exhibiting the historical archive of CCAA, we also try ways to incorporate the context for now into the experience. So you can see here, a QR code appears on the labels in addition to conventional caption information about the work. When scanning this QR code, the visitor is guided to a web app where he or she could comment on different aspects of the artwork, such as genre, style, author, color, structure, etc. So the world will fly into the tunnel and interconnect with the historical comment made by CCA jury on the same work. Let's please, next slide. So there are two types of conversation generated by this interaction method. One is about artwork as the last slide. One is about CCA. So what you could see here is you could see each image here with a red tag is actually from the historical archive, and the white tag is from visitor submission in real time. In this way, time becomes condensed and intertwined. So next, please. The second conversation is between the audience and the CCAA, which is the same interaction method. Audience can also answer the question about CCAA. For example, what the meaning of the critical award? Who do you think is most inspiring jury member? Those comments appear in the independent keywords in this scene. So it looks like a bullet curtain. So next slide, please. Okay, we couldn't see the video clip here. So next, please. Then finally, aside from one-side interaction, the project also broadcast the exhibition on the internet. So we launched a website called CCA Now, which shows in real time what is happening in the exhibition space. So all the all the real-time comment will appear on the website. You can see which work get the more attention, what visitors are thinking about them at the moment. So next, please. Yeah, this is just a brief screenshot how this website works. So all the latest comment will appear from left to right. So during the exhibition, the website functions as an alternative way of exhibiting, extension of the exhibiting space. Yeah?
Yeah, so next one is actually the last one. Yeah, so basically this project is a juxtaposition of visualizing the art archive, which is probably one of the biggest art archive about Chinese contemporary art, and also to place the archive and allow it to absorb on-site and real-time feedbacks from the audiences to know how exactly these artworks are receiving, what kind of responses it is receiving, or what kind of comments it is receiving. So basically, by encouraging visitors be sort of actively involved, the CCA Now project is a living archive that talks to the present moment. The paper we are working on is going to consider how this piece might serve as a potential method to bring archives to life organically in an exhibition setting or museum setting, and dissolving moments in situ into the visual presentation and growing with the flow of time. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And so that's all the 4 presentations. We have 9 minutes for questions or comments or what have you. We still have Iris and Cedar here with us too, if you perhaps want to ask them something. So let's see if there's any questions. Yes?
I have a question for John and Sonia.
Okay.
You know that now there's a kind of putting in open access research results from public projects. For instance, the European Union and the Horizon 2020 has some call about that. So researchers have to put the information in this form.
Excuse me, guys.
So you were acting as a repository, a bibliographic repository, from what I understood. But how your project could be affected with all this thing about open access and data sharing and all this?
That's a great question. Thank you so much for that. So at the moment, as we said, that we've started off with the bibliographical records because we're not dealing with the issues of ownership of content. In the later stages of the project, we will plan to enrich the references with the data that's coming from that's been made available through those other resources. So pointing out, like again, like Stephen was left, but Stephen Brown is pointing outwards towards other resources. Because our data is, the bibliographical data that we gather is then stored in the university repository. It complicates that idea of like if we actually take it in and keep it in our environment. So I think what we plan to do is to point outwards to other collections. And I think that the idea of using the data sets that are going to be made available through European projects is fantastic. Recently, we know some similar projects, for example, a kind of precursor to our project, it's called the Bibliography of Irish Literary Criticism, was funded by Irish funding, which again is built on European funding. We're talking about data sharing between those projects, so kind of not reclaiming, but reusing work that's already been done and informing the kind of work that's going forward. But that was an excellent question. Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Yes, go. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you very much for all the presentations. I thought they were really good. I've got 2 questions, one for Marcus and one for Lorraine. Marcus, did you get the impression that the professionals you spoke about your project, their unwillingness, or probably, if you like, their apprehensiveness to sort of adapt had anything to do with the anxiety of ceding the authority or seeing themselves as the sole arbiters of, expertise around collections and things like that? And to Lorraine, you did say you weren't particularly concerned or worried about truthfulness or veracity in your project. I was just wondering to what extent you think that might have the potential to sort of, if you like, probably bring the company's history into disrepute if people say things that aren't quite accurate, really. I hope those questions make sense in a way. Okay.
Thanks for the question. If I understood you right, you wanted to know the reasons why curators were, or some curators were not happy with this process. I can't really answer the question because I want to know that myself. The problem was that our evaluation, it was a huge questionnaire that mixed up questions on another topic with this, and so we only had this one question about it, and we didn't really have time to go into interviews. We are planning to do that because we really do want to know what the problems are. So we think we're onto something good. It seems obvious when you see it in a presentation like this, but actually a lot of thought went into this process. And we want to make that process robust and see that if it's accepted or not, and if not, what the reasons for that are.
but there wasn't a general sort of anxiety around crowdsourcing, a sort of impinging on the sort of...
I think that there is a general anxiety about that, which was manifests itself in that quote. So if you read up in this topic, this question about the validity of the content, if people have the right to post that content in first place, that crops up over and over again in this. There's this contrast between amateurs and professionals, and it plays out in this field, basically.
Thank you very much.
It's probably a bit flippant of me to say we weren't interested in truth, but I think in the beginning there's 900 videos. Asking my colleague, who would actually know that more than me, and there is an importance of truth that you would not want somebody being attributed to having performed a trick or something that belongs to someone else, because that's a trademark for people as well. But also the quality of the footage is such that at times it's hard to know, and the records aren't always available. So we're both relying on crowdsourcing for that truth. And I think in the beginning we were more worried about classifying that, getting those details right. But as the prompts evolved, it became more the stories around the performance that I think became quite interesting. And a story around a performance is not true. The people who are on the stage or who performed all the various roles, of course, they are the ones. But once you go to the experience, then it's completely subjective. And so people might say, I know that this person did this, but someone else might say, I wasn't there, but I really like this, or it reminds me of, or I saw a similar. And you could rely on the wisdom of the crowd to take out any mistruth. But I think actually just getting people to even upload, and it's that thing of engaging people to actually even start to tell the stories from which truth would emerge, but rather than... we went through many taxonomies and many different ways to try and do this thing that, because there was just so much data to be uploaded and trying to find a method. So it's like truth matters, but it was less about bibliographic truth and more engagement, I think, is how we evolved.
If I may offer a comment in
Yeah.
relation to this, because I'm involved
You
in a
have to
similar...
use this too.
Well, thank you. I'm involved in a similar project where, again, and this is something we say, we don't care about the truth. But what it is it's not that we don't care about the truth, is we care about memories rather than facts. So we privilege memories over facts, in that facts can also be subjective sometimes. And so it's an interesting balance to try to strike. And I think the missing word in this discussion is memory, really, isn't it? And so you're privileging memories, I would say, over facts rather than we don't care about the truth. As in, you yourself admitted that's kind of a bit flippant, really, isn't it?
But we also have the issue of scale.
Yeah.
So the scale is different to the scale of what you're trying to do, perhaps even to yours, where it's actually a broad range of people who have designed those various things. This is a community. Sure. And so you won't have people trying to appropriate somebody else's expertise because the flow-on is too great in a too smaller body. It'd be different if it was one of Cirque du Soleil, where there are hundreds of performers. This is actually really a relatively small community. That also changes that dynamic.
Indeed. Well,
Maybe to add to that,
oh, safe.
because you're looking for memories and impressions, things like that. And in that context, it probably can thrive off differences in memories and impressions, whereas in our case, it's obviously that as a designer, and we want to find out what was. So that's a key difference.
Also in your kind of project, perhaps, having something, even if it's not 100% verifiable, better than having completely unknown. Considered to be or thought to be is better than nothing, if you see what I mean, rather than actually this is it, if you see what I mean.
I would say yes, but a curator probably would answer differently.
Indeed. We have time for one last question, because we actually only have 1 minute left. So.
This question.
Oh,
I wanted
sure,
to
fair enough.
comment on the ongoing, because I do a lot of stuff with narrative, both real and fictional narratives. And obviously part of the fun we have with them is that you need to be able to describe the events that are happening in a way that you can compare them across realities, basically, and compare between the real and the fictional, but also to be able to separate what we see as the real and what we see as the fictional. And we actually there was one project that was sort of semi-related, we used a lot of the theories in, which was looking at witness statements in a medieval inquest into a guy who'd supposedly come back from the dead 17 years ago. And so the way that we look at it when we look at the narrative and the way that we looked at it when we looked at the witness statements was that each statement had basically its own shared truth, that it might or might not be a truth that was shared with any other version of those events, but within the context of that statement you had a shared truth, and that created a reality. And so when you had a shared reality between the different truths, you had a greater reality that they were in, and then this could grow out. So that it wasn't that it was the facts were true for that reality, which may or may not actually exist. And obviously realities can contain other realities and overlap with other realities, and then it starts getting onto the philosophical 2 a.m. post-conference dinner type of discussion, which is a lot of fun. But it's when you can start playing with the narratives like that and the realities and the fictions and things and going across them. And that's just so much cool stuff you can do with that. So I just thought I'd throw that into the pot.
Well, thanks again to all the presenters, and thank you all for coming to this session. And I hope you enjoy the rest of today's program. Thank you.